Most people don't have a focus problem. They have a stop problem. They stop the book at chapter 3. Stop the business at month 6. Stop the relationship before it becomes something real. Stop digging at 20 feet, not knowing the water was at 21. Everything you have ever wanted is beneath the next layer. Stop stopping. There is a simple experiment every schoolboy once performed in a sunny courtyard. He would take a magnifying glass and hold it over a dry leaf, and he would wait. Nothing would happen at first. The sun was warm, the glass was clear, the leaf was ready. But nothing happened because the boy kept moving the glass an inch this way, an inch that way, chasing the brightest patch of light, adjusting, repositioning, always searching for a better angle. Then, one afternoon, a patient old teacher walked by and placed his hand gently over the boy's. He held it still, just still. Within seconds, a thin curl of smoke rose from the leaf. A moment later, fire. The boy looked up astonished. "I was using the same sun," he said. "The same glass." The teacher nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. "But today you were focused." That is where we begin. The sun does not become more powerful when filtered through a lens. It does not work harder. It does not acquire new energy or special permission. It simply becomes concentrated. All of its warmth, which was already present, is gathered into a single point, and that single point becomes capable of creating fire. This is the law of focus. Your talent, your intelligence, your time, your energy, these are the sun. They are already sufficient. They have always been sufficient. What has been missing is not more of them. What has been missing is concentration. Every great person you have ever admired, the writer who produced the defining novel of a generation, the scientist who cracked open a mystery that baffled centuries of predecessors, the entrepreneur who built something from nothing, they were not necessarily the most gifted people in their field. But they were without exception among the most focused. Newton did not discover the laws of motion by dabbling. He locked himself in a room for 18 months and thought of almost nothing else. Edison did not invent the light bulb by sampling a dozen industries. He chose his laboratory and he stayed. Lincoln did not preserve a nation by dividing his attention. In the most turbulent years of American history, he fixed his eyes on a single aim and refused to be moved. Focus is not a technique. It is not a productivity hack or a calendar strategy. Focus is a force, and like all forces, it obeys a law. The great error of our age, and perhaps of every age, is the belief that more is better. More options, more projects, more connections, more platforms, more notifications, more goals. We have been told that the successful person is the busy person. The full calendar, the overflowing inbox, the man or woman who is always in the middle of something. We have mistaken this for ambition. We have confused motion with momentum. We have called distraction by the flattering name of opportunity. And so we scatter. We start the business and the side project. We read the first chapter of 12 books. We pursue the relationship and keep one eye on the exit. We train for the race and skip half the sessions. We commit to the goal on Monday and quietly abandon it by Thursday because something newer and shinier appeared on the horizon. Here is what this costs you. Every time you divide your attention, you do not merely reduce it by half. You reduce it by far more, because focus is not arithmetic, it is geometric. A mind working on one thing with complete dedication does not produce twice the result of a mind split between two things. It produces 10 times the result, 100 times, because depth compounds in ways that breadth never can. The man who digs one well to 300 feet finds water. The man who digs 10 wells to 30 feet each finds nothing but 10 holes in the ground. You may recognize yourself in this. Most of us do. Now I want you to hear something clearly, because this is the turn in the road where everything changes. You do not need a new opportunity. You do not need a fresh start, a different city, a new industry, or a better set of circumstances. What you need is to go deeper into where you already are. Most people treat their current situation like a bad neighborhood, something to escape from as quickly as possible. They are always moving on, always starting over, always convinced that the real gold is somewhere else, in someone else's life, in a different field entirely. But I want to suggest to you that the situation you are standing in right now, the skill you have partially developed, the work you have partially committed to, the relationships you have partially invested in, these are not failures waiting to be abandoned. These are mines waiting to be excavated. You have not yet gone deep enough to find out what is really there. The amateur tries something for 6 months, sees no extraordinary result, and moves on. The professional tries something for 6 months, sees no extraordinary result, and digs deeper. Because the professional understands something the amateur does not, the rewards of any worthy pursuit are buried far beneath the surface. They are not given to those who merely show up. They are given to those who stay. Your current situation is not a limitation. It is an invitation to focus. So let us be concrete. Here is how you begin. The first action is elimination. Take a sheet of paper and write down every significant project, goal, commitment, and pursuit currently competing for your energy. Be honest. Be thorough. Then ask yourself, if I could only keep one of these, which one would it be? Which one, pursued with everything I have, would change my life most completely? Circle it. Everything else on that list is, for now, a distraction. You do not have to abandon them forever, but you must set them aside until your primary pursuit has reached a level of mastery that can sustain itself without your constant intervention. The second action is the protection of your deep work hours. Identify the 2 or 3 hours of your day when your mind is sharpest. For most people, this is the morning. Guard those hours with a seriousness you have never applied before. No email, no phone, no small tasks, no conversations. During those hours, you work on the one thing, only the one thing. This is not a luxury. This is the forge where your future is being made. The third action is measurement. At the end of each week, ask yourself one question: did I move forward on the one thing? No, was I busy? Not, did I work hard? Those questions are traps. The only question that matters is whether the needle moved on the single most important pursuit. If it did, you are living the law of focus. If it did not, something stole your attention, and next week you guard against it. These 3 actions are simple. They are not easy, but they are available to you right now, today, without any additional resources or permissions from the world. Teach process ohne desit. I want to say one final thing before we close, and I want you to carry it with you. The world is organized in a very particular way. At the surface level, where most people live, competition is fierce and rewards are thin. There are thousands of people competing for the same entry-level positions, the same generic clients, the same basic opportunities. At this level, everyone looks more or less the same because no one has gone deep enough to become something extraordinary. But as you descend, as you commit to the one thing and go further into it than anyone around you is willing to go, something remarkable happens. The competition begins to thin. At a certain depth of mastery, you do not compete with others so much as you exist in a category they have not yet reached. The expert does not chase clients. Clients seek out the expert. The master does not apply for opportunities. Opportunities are created specifically for the master. This is not arrogance. It is simply the mathematics of depth. When you know something better than nearly anyone else alive, the world reorganizes itself around you. But this only comes through sustained, committed, long-term focus. Not a week of focus, not a season, a life's direction. Choose your direction. Commit to it with the full weight of your ability. Go deeper than you believed possible. And then go deeper still. This is the law of focus, and it has never failed a single person who has truly obeyed it. Tici scatuminde. There is something quietly terrifying about standing in the middle of a field and watching a man run in every direction at once. He sprints north for 30 yards, stops, turns east, runs hard, stops again. Then west, then south. His legs are strong, his lungs are powerful. His effort is, by any honest measure, extraordinary. And yet when the sun sets and you walk out to find him, he is standing almost exactly where he started. This is the picture I want you to sit with for a moment, because that man is not a stranger. That man is the version of ourselves we become the moment we stop choosing and start reacting. The moment we say yes to everything. The moment we confuse a full schedule with a full life. Most of us will never admit how much of our energy has been spent running in circles because we were moving too fast to notice we were going nowhere. Now I want you to ask yourself something honest. How many things are you currently pursuing, not interested in, pursuing? With your time, with your money, with the finest hours of your day. If you count them, the business idea and the side project, the skill you are halfway developing, the relationship you are partially present in, the goal you revisit every January and quietly shelve by March, how many directions are you moving in simultaneously? Most people, when they slow down long enough to count, find the number unsettling. Here is what I want you to understand about the nature of the human mind. It was not built for division. It was built for direction. The mind, when given a single clear target, does something almost miraculous. It begins to organize everything around that target. Your observations sharpen. Your decisions simplify. Your energy, rather than bleeding out in a dozen directions, gathers itself into something with genuine force behind it. But when you give that same mind 7 targets, 12 ambitions, and an endless list of things that all feel equally urgent, it does not rise to the challenge. It freezes. Not dramatically, not in a way you would notice immediately. It freezes quietly beneath a surface of constant motion, producing the feeling of effort without the reality of progress. This is why the scattered mind is not merely inefficient. It is self-defeating. Every new direction you add does not expand your power, it dilutes it. And here is where I want you to feel something shift. The scattered mind is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you lack discipline or ambition or the capacity for greatness. It is simply what happens when a capable person has never been told the truth about focus, that it is not a natural condition, but a chosen one. A daily decision, a practiced discipline. You are not broken. You are simply unfocused. And that, unlike talent, unlike circumstance, unlike the accidents of birth, is something you can change before this day is finished. There is a particular kind of dread that visits a man in his quieter moments. It arrives not in the middle of chaos, not when the phone is ringing and the emails are stacking and the day is demanding everything from him at once. It arrives in the silence, late at night or early in the morning before the world has started its noise again. And it whispers a question he has been too busy to answer. Is any of this actually working? He has been at it for years. He has read the books, attended the seminars, set the goals, built the habits. He has worked hard, genuinely hard, and yet the life he imagined, the level of mastery he believed was coming, the recognition he felt certain effort would eventually produce, none of it has arrived in the form he expected. And in that silence, a quiet suspicion begins to form. Perhaps he is simply not the kind of person things work out for. I want you to stop right there. Before you accept that conclusion, before you allow that whisper to settle into a belief, I want you to consider a different possibility entirely. What if the effort was never the problem? What if the problem was never your capacity, your intelligence, or your worthiness of success? What if the only thing standing between where you are and everything you have been working toward is not more effort, but directed effort, not harder work, but concentrated work? History does not reward the most talented. It rewards the most focused. Consider what a single point of concentrated energy actually produces. The laser, which is nothing more than ordinary light brought into perfect alignment, can cut through steel that no amount of scattered light could ever mark. The river, which is nothing more than rainwater given a single channel to follow, carves canyons through solid rock over time. These are not metaphors I am offering you for comfort. These are demonstrations of a principle that operates as reliably in human endeavor as it does in the physical world. When a man chooses one pursuit, truly chooses it, with the full weight of his commitment, something changes in the quality of his thinking. He begins to see connections invisible to the dabbler. He develops instincts the generalist never acquires. He accumulates a depth of understanding that cannot be purchased, borrowed, or shortcut. And that depth, compounded over months and years, produces results so disproportionate to what came before that observers call it genius. It is not genius. It is concentration sustained long enough to become mastery. Every extraordinary result you have ever admired in another person's life was produced this way, not by someone who had access to resources you lack, not by someone born with gifts you were denied, but by someone who decided, perhaps on an otherwise ordinary day, in an otherwise ordinary moment, to stop dividing themselves and start committing. That decision is available to you right now. It has always been available to you. And the moment you make it, truly make it, is the moment everything begins to change. There is a man I want you to picture. He rises before dawn. He answers messages before his feet have fully found the floor. His calendar is a mosaic of appointments, calls, commitments, and obligations stacked so tightly against one another that there is barely room to breathe between them. He works through lunch. He responds after dinner. He falls into bed exhausted, genuinely, physically exhausted. And he does this not once, but every single day, week after week, month after month. And at the end of the year, when he sits down to honestly assess what all of that effort has produced, he finds himself looking at a life that has barely moved. Not because he was lazy, not because he was careless, but because he made the most common and most costly mistake available to an ambitious person in the modern world. He confused being busy with making progress. Now, before you decide that does not apply to you, before you reach for the list of everything on your plate as evidence that your business is different, that your activity is the productive kind, I want you to pause long enough to ask one uncomfortable question. When did you last finish something that mattered? Not completed a task, not cleared an inbox or attended a meeting or responded to a request. When did you last move something forward, something significant, something that aligned with the deepest ambitions you carry, in a way that was real and measurable and undeniable? If the answer requires more than a moment's thought, keep reading. Here is the truth about business that no one tells you plainly enough. Business is, in most cases, a sophisticated form of avoidance. It is what happens when a person fills every available hour with activity, so that they never have to sit quietly with the one question that genuinely frightens them. Am I working on the right thing? The full calendar becomes armor. The overflowing to-do list becomes an alibi, and the exhaustion at the end of the day becomes proof, false proof, but proof nonetheless, that something worthwhile must have happened. The mind that is always busy is a mind that is never fully engaged, because genuine engagement, the kind that produces breakthrough, that develops mastery, that moves a life from ordinary to remarkable, requires something that business systematically destroys. It requires stillness, depth, uninterrupted time with a single worthy problem. Thomas Edison understood this. He did not fill his laboratory with frantic activity and call it innovation. He sat with problems. He returned to them. He gave them the rarest gift a human being can offer anything, his complete and undivided attention, sustained across days and weeks and months until the problem had nowhere left to hide. And here is where I want the weight to lift from your shoulders. You do not need more hours. You do not need a different life or a cleared schedule or permission from the world to finally begin. You need only to make one honest distinction between the activities that feel like progress and the work that creates it. Draw that line clearly, then place everything you have on the side that matters. That single act of clarity, made once honored daily, is worth more than 1,000 busy weeks. It is the moment a life stops spinning and starts moving, and it is available to you not next month, not after the current obligations settle, not when conditions improve. It is available to you in the very next hour you choose to spend differently. THECOMPODANDRUARN. There is a specific kind of discouragement that targets the most serious people. Not the casual dabbler, he abandons his pursuits too quickly to feel it deeply. Not the perpetual beginner, he has made peace with starting over. It targets the person who has genuinely committed, who has chosen the one thing, protected the hours, done the work, and then watched as weeks turned to months with results that seemed, by any honest measure, embarrassingly small relative to the effort invested. This person does not quit loudly. He does not make a dramatic declaration of surrender. He simply begins quietly and almost imperceptibly to loosen his grip, to hedge, to wonder whether perhaps his energy might be better distributed elsewhere. And in that loosening, in that single, subtle act of doubt, he steps away from the threshold of something extraordinary without ever knowing how close he actually was. I want you to hold that image before we go any further, because if there is one thing I could place into the hands of every earnest, hard-working, genuinely committed person who has ever felt that their sustained effort was producing nothing, it is this single understanding. You are not failing. You are compounding. There is a principle at work in every worthy human pursuit that mirrors almost exactly what happens in the world of finance. When you place money in an account that earns compound interest, the early returns appear insultingly modest. The first months produce numbers so small they seem almost to mock the initial investment. A patient observer watching from the outside might reasonably conclude that nothing meaningful is happening. But beneath that unremarkable surface, a mathematical process of extraordinary power is quietly underway. Each small return is being added to the principal. Each cycle builds upon the last. And at a certain point, a point that cannot be predicted precisely but arrives with absolute certainty, the curve stops being gradual and becomes nearly vertical. This is not a financial phenomenon. It is a natural law. It operates in the development of skill exactly as it operates in the accumulation of wealth. The writer who produces one honest page every single day does not become twice as good in a year, he becomes unrecognizable. The musician who practices one piece with complete attention does not improve linearly, he crosses thresholds that open entire new territories of ability. The thinker who returns to one deep problem day after day does not simply accumulate more information, he begins to see what no one who has merely glanced at the subject can ever see. But, and this is the point upon which everything turns, compounding only works if you do not withdraw early. The moment you pull the investment, the process stops, not slow stops. And worse than stopping, it resets, because the compounding of human skill is not preserved when you walk away from it. The musician who abandons his practice for a new instrument does not carry his accumulated depth with him. The writer who abandons his manuscript for a new project does not transfer his momentum. He begins again, at the surface, where everyone else is standing. This is why the people who achieve genuine mastery are so rarely the most naturally gifted. They are the ones who stayed, who continued to show up on the days when the returns were invisible, who trusted the process during the long, unglamorous middle stretch when nothing seemed to be happening, because they understood, at some deep level, that everything was happening beneath the surface, out of sight, quietly and powerfully compounding. And here is where I want something to settle over you like a warm light. If you have been at your chosen pursuit for months or years, and the results have not yet announced themselves in the dramatic fashion you expected, this is not evidence that you have chosen wrongly or worked insufficiently. It is evidence that you are in the middle of the process, the unglamorous, invisible, essential middle where all genuine transformation actually occurs. Do not withdraw now. The curve is bending. The threshold is closer than the silence is telling you. Every focused day you add to what you have already built does not merely add to the total, it multiplies it. And one morning, not far from where you are standing right now, you will look up from your work and find that the world is looking back at you differently. Stay in, stay focused. Let the law do what the law has always done. It has never failed a patient person yet. Teach ye fused lif. There is a question that arrives uninvited somewhere in the middle of a life. It does not come during the busy years, not when the children are young and the career is climbing and the days are so full that there is no space between one thing and the next. It comes later, in a quiet room, on an idle afternoon, or sometimes in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday when nothing in particular has gone wrong and yet something feels unmistakably and disturbingly incomplete. The question is not complicated. It is, in fact, among the simplest questions a human being can ask. What was all of this for? And the reason it arrives with such weight, the reason it can stop a successful, accomplished, outwardly inviolable person completely in their tracks, is that they find, when they sit honestly with it, that they cannot answer it clearly. They can list what they did. They can describe where they went and what they accumulated and how others perceive them. But the thread, the single, clear, meaningful thread that runs through a life and gives it coherence and direction and purpose, that thread is difficult to find. Because it was never deliberately chosen. It was assembled, piece by piece, from whatever opportunities appeared, whatever pressures arrived, whatever directions others pointed them in. They were responsive. They were capable. They were, by most measures, successful. But they were never truly focused. Now I want you to understand something before that picture settles too heavily on your shoulders. A focused life does not mean a narrow life. It does not mean poverty of experience or isolation from the richness of the world. It does not mean refusing adventure or closing yourself to the unexpected gifts that arrive uninvited. Focus is not a cage. It is a compass. And a person with a compass does not see less of the world. They navigate it with a certainty and a confidence that the person without one can never quite find. When a man or woman chooses a direction, a genuine direction, rooted in their deepest values and their most honest assessment of what they are built to contribute, something profound happens to the texture of their daily life. Decisions that once required agonizing deliberation become simple. Opportunities that once seemed equally compelling become easy to evaluate. The question is no longer should I do this, but simply does this serve the direction? And that single filter, applied consistently, removes an enormous weight from a human life. The focused life is not a life of less. It is a life of more meaning in the work, more depth in the relationships, more satisfaction in the ordinary moments that a scattered life rushes past without noticing. Consider the people you have known, or known of, who possess this quality. There is a particular kind of calm that surrounds them. Not the calm of someone who has given up, but the calm of someone who has decided. They are not anxious about what they might be missing, because they are too genuinely engaged in what they have chosen. They are not envious of other paths, because their own path is producing something real. They move through the world with a quietness of purpose that others often mistake for confidence, and they are not wrong, because that is precisely what it is. This is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is not a personality trait distributed at birth to a fortunate few. It is a choice, available to any person willing to make it. And the making of it does not require a dramatic moment of revelation or a complete dismantling of the life you have already built. It requires only that you sit down, honestly, quietly, without the noise of other people's expectations filling the room, and ask yourself two questions. What do I believe I am here to do? And is the way I am spending my days actually moving me toward it? If the answer to the second question is yes, even partially, even imperfectly, then build on that. Strengthen that thread. Give it more of your time, more of your finest hours, more of your deliberate attention, until it becomes unmistakably the spine of your life. And if the answer is no, if you find in that honest silence that your days and your direction have drifted apart, then understand this. It is not too late. It is never too late to choose a direction and begin moving in it with intention. The focused life does not require a perfect past. It requires only a decided present. Decide now. Not because the world is waiting, though in its own way it is, but because somewhere ahead of you, on an otherwise ordinary afternoon, that quiet question is going to arrive again. And this time you will be ready to answer it. 1. The sun was always powerful enough. It only needed to be concentrated. So do you. 2. Focus is not about working harder, it is about working deeper. 3. Motion is not momentum, business is not progress. Measure output, not activity. 4. Every time you divide your attention, you lose far more than half. Focus compounds, distraction only subtracts. 5. The person who digs one well to 300 feet finds water. The person who digs 10 wells to 30 feet finds only 10 holes. Choose your well. 6. Your current situation is not a limitation, it is an invitation. The gold is there. You have not gone deep enough yet. 7. Eliminate ruthlessly. The one thing that matters most cannot receive your best if it must share you with everything else. 8. Protect your sharpest hours. The forge of your future must not be borrowed for small tasks. 9. At the surface, competition is overwhelming. At depth, competition nearly disappears. Mastery removes you from the crowd entirely. 10. The amateur quits when the results do not come quickly. The professional understands that the rewards are buried deep and keeps digging. 11. You do not need new circumstances. You need new concentration applied to your current circumstances. 12. Hold the glass still. Let the point of focus settle. And then watch what catches fire. Go deep. Stay long. The law of focus rewards those who obey it without condition.